CoinDCX, your gateway to crypto.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the Business Today show. I'm Chaiti Narula. Let's start with the top news today. Big fall in manufacturing sector drags down India's GDP growth in July-September to 6.3% from 13.5% in the previous quarter. Skyrocketing interest rates also bring down the pace of growth. The street indices up for 7th straight day. Sensex closes above 63,000 mark for the first time. Gains led by power, metal and auto shares. All indices excepting PSU banks end in the green. Adani Group wins the mega Dharavi Slum redevelopment contract with 5,069 crore rupee bid. Promises complete rehabilitation in 7 years. Project to be finished in 17 years. Tata all set to challenge the Chinese with its bold iPhone call. Reports say the group is in talks to buy Wistron's India iPhone manufacturing plant for up to 5,000 crore rupees. And India's economic growth has halved from the pace set in the first quarter of this financial year. The latest GDP figures released earlier today show how the economy growing by 6.3% in July-September versus 13.5% growth seen in April-June. The figure is lower than the 8.5% clocked in July-September last year. While the agriculture and services sectors along with construction have been shining beacons this quarter, manufacturing sector that incidentally has a large weightage on the total GDP contracted by 4.3% this quarter. The mining sector also contracted sharply by 2.8%. Interestingly, the growth rate tops of the estimate band forecast by the RBI in its October review. Let's also now hear out India's Chief Economic Advisor Anand Nageswaran on what he makes of India's growth in the quarter gone by.
Other indicators of service sector activity have expanded quite ably and quite robustly compared to the 2019 levels, as you can see in this. Private consumption growth rate has rebounded, which is good news because that shows that households are in general optimistic about their income prospects and employment prospects. On the right side, you can see that this improved balance sheet on the part of the banking system has also been accompanied by a willingness to lend. Credit growth is all around. It is not just concentrated in one sector. Credit to MSMEs is particularly strong, and that is gratifying. Clearly, a very strong momentum in credit growth, and the demand for credit coming from all sectors points to continued economic momentum and growth continuing. As far as the growth numbers are concerned, that is why India's growth estimates, which were to the north of 8% or even 9% at the beginning of the year, it has come down to between 6.8 and 7%, precisely because global growth has slowed down and monetary tightening is happening, still underway in the developed world, and export growth will not be able to contribute as much as it did last year. And that is the reason why these estimates are have come down from the beginning of the year.
Business Today TV's managing editor Siddharth Dharavi had the chance to decode the Q2 GDP figures with a couple of economists on what they make of India's GDP print. And here's a slice of that conversation.
GDP growth of 6.3%, as you said, is very much in line with market expectations and our expectations. And while, the number looks lower when you compare it to what we had in the corresponding period of the previous year, but if you look at it on a sequential basis, this would be an improvement of more than 2%, which is a positive aspect. But yes, what is very concerning to me is what you spoke about, manufacturing sector contracting by 4.3%. I feel it could be because of this component of trade, hotel, transport and communication doing much better than what was expected, because we had seen a strong contraction in that in the last quarter compared to the pre-COVID period.
Would it be fair to say that the consumption side of the Indian economy is robust, kicking, choose your phrase as you like it, but the core manufacturing industrial side is suffering because perhaps the pent-up stuff has run out of steam and the export side is going down, and that larger sort of capital-led investment is therefore showing up in these numbers. Would it be a fair assessment?
So I think, Siddharth, let's just back up a little bit, to where we were discussing about the domestic demand. And that is exactly the story that came out, just a minute later as we were discussing it in the actual numbers.
Yeah.
The entire world is currently looking at India as a bright spot. We are actually seeing that this is one of the few economies globally where, despite high inflation levels, you're still seeing an increase in consumption demand. So that story continues to be strong. And the strong growth in the agriculture sector shows that it's not only urban demand, but there's a strong growth even in the rural centers. That's coming.
Is that so, Mithali? Is that so, or is it just the fact that we didn't see too much weather-related disruption? Is it just a factor of productivity rather than demand? Because a lot of the production would head into warehouses, the MSP-driven stuff. Why would you link it to rural demand, which anecdotal data and other kind of data suggests has been suffering a bit?
So I think, Siddharth, to some extent, there's also government consumption spending that has to be credited for this. The government spending happened in the right areas. It happened for social protection during COVID, which resulted in a situation where during COVID, you didn't see households suffer as much as they would have without the government support.
Okay.
So when you have the free cylinder scheme, when you have, the food grain scheme, then you have a buffer, you have a social safety net that was actually given to a lot of rural households.
Okay.
So you do see that, this new consumption growth that's starting to come, this, reversing of the trend post-COVID, that is actually panning out pan-India, not just in a urban, it's not just an urban story.
Would it be fair to argue that the agriculture part of the economy is more dependent on weather gods and, of course, states and center doing their bit for our farmer? But that is not truly reflective of the real state of the economy. Industry, consumption, and government's own data that we just spoke about, suggesting that things are not fully in balance, Rajni.
Definitely, things are not completely balanced. Consumption is a cause of concern. And on consumption, we are getting very mixed signals. So if I just look at the first quarter GDP number, I'll have to look more closely at the second quarter GDP number. But even the first quarter GDP number, we had seen that consumption, when compared to the pre-pandemic period, had recorded a good growth of 10%, which is pretty good. I'm talking about pre-pandemic period, so removing all the base effect. And then a lot of other indicators of consumption like auto sales, GST collection, they have all been recording very robust growth. But like I mentioned earlier, there are some other indicators like IIP, consumer durables as well as non-durables, which are not very good. We have had FMCG companies highlighting that the rural demand is still weak. So yes, there are very mixed indicators coming on the consumption front. And another point to note is that if the manufacturing sector is contracting, that also speaks about consumption. So it's kind of very surprising that if the consumption GDP is showing a growth, private final consumption expenditure, then why would the manufacturing sector record such a sharp contraction? So definitely all is not balanced and consumption cannot be very strong if manufacturing sector is recording a contraction on a IOI basis.
Mithali, you want to add to the future possibilities? Rajni has given us her numbers. Are there any numbers that you are working with for the remaining part of the year?
I think that going forward as an economy, we need to diversify our fuel sources. We need to see more and more investments coming into clean energy. We need to see more investments coming into the manufacturing sector. And the dismal performance of the manufacturing sector, despite the production-linked incentive schemes, is definitely a cause for concern. It shows that at this point in time, the government needs to be investigating which production-linked incentive schemes are doing well,
right,
and increase the spending on those.
We had a fantastic sort of base for the first quarter, and that is now clearly behind us. What we are also seeing is normalization plus, Rajni, and that is a point that I want to address with you as we quickly wrap down the show, which is the impact of the monetary policy hikes. The number is 190 basis points from May itself, and perhaps one more hike coming very soon. So that is also something that we should factor in as far as the numbers are concerned, because 6.3% versus the overall median estimate, if we were to sort of do a median of all the major polls, was around 6.4%. So not terribly off. How would you respond to those 2 points that we just made?
Hike by RBI in the December meeting, but we are expecting the rate hike to moderate to around 35 basis points as against 50 basis points that we have seen in the past. And yes, I agree with you that we will, there is some impact of monetary policy tightening that has happened so far. And in fact, more of the impact we'll see going forward, because monetary policy takes few quarters for the impact to be seen.
Quickly, Rajni, very quickly, what's your full year number now that you have the Q2 numbers before you?
So we are expecting GDP growth in the range of 6.8 to 7% for the full year.
And for you, Mithali, what's the full year number you are considering?
I think it's about 7 to 7.2 for the full year.
On to the markets now. The bulls were in complete control of Dalal Street, with the frontline indices clocking in fresh highs yet again. 7th straight day of gains, with the Nifty ending just above the 18,750 mark and Sensex closing above the 63,000 mark. Mahindra & Mahindra, Hindalco, Grasim and SBI Life were amongst the top gainers today, and thus flashing on your screens right now. While on the losing end, it was a lackluster day of trade for the banks, with IndusInd and SBI closing the day with cuts of nearly a percent each. Chinese company Alibaba has reportedly diluted its stake in Zomato to 10% from 13%. The e-commerce platform likely sold 26 crore shares for about $200 in trade today. The Zomato stock was up 3.5% in today's trading session. So what is really next for this particular stock? Here is what Devam Sharma of Green Portfolio has to say.
Alibaba Group is planning to sell a stake of around 3% in Zomato, worth $200 million through a block deal. Earlier also, the company's co-founder Mohit Gupta resigned, and the stock is actually down over 60% from its 52-week high. So what are your thoughts on Zomato, and where is the stock headed according to you?
So if you look at the Zomato's balance sheet, the debt is almost insignificant. There is, in fact, a significant cash on the books on the balance sheet. If you look at the market is further consolidating, with news like Amazon going out of the food delivery business, which is a very positive news for this duopoly business, which is Swiggy and Zomato. The worst news, which includes exit of some of the senior officials or exit of some anchor investors or fall in valuations in global tech product companies, is already factored in. Like, the guidance of the company also says that the company on a broader level will be operationally profitable in the next 2 to 4 quarters if you keep aside the quick commerce business, right? So profitability is also coming.
Let's now take a look at all that is making news in the corporate world. Tata Group is reportedly in talks to buy iPhone manufacturing plant of Wistron in India. The deal is pegged to up to 5,000 crore rupees, will propel Tata into the major handsets player league. It will also be a challenge for China now, the dominant player in electronics manufacturing. Samsung India is planning to hire around 1,000 engineers for its research and development institutes across India. The engineers will be hired from top institutes like IIT in areas like artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, and VLSI. Time now for a very short commercial break. Later in the show, India Incorporated bids a heavy goodbye to one of its brightest stars. Bringing you this in more moments from now.
The political battle in Gujarat is heating up, with just days to go for the first phase of polling. The BJP is once again banking on the Modi magic to help them cross the finishing line. Along with Vikas, the Prime Minister is also relying on the nationalistic pitch, which has won him and his party countless polls since 2014.
यहाँ हम गुजरात में आतंकियों को पकड़ते थे, तब दिल्ली में बैठी कांग्रेस सरकार आतंकियों को छुड़ाने में अपनी पूरी ताकत लगा देती थी.
During his address in Kheda, Modi launched into the opposition, accusing them of supporting terror backers and going soft on terrorism. Prime Minister's ferocious attack came couple of days after Home Minister Amit Shah brought back the 2002 Gujarat riots back in focus. The Congress party, which is running a silent campaign, has been trying to focus on local issues. For the first time since taking over as Congress president, Mallikarjun Kharge joined the campaign. He called out the Prime Minister for using his humble background for getting sympathy.
जो आप हमेशा क्लेम करते हैं, मैं गरीब हूं, मैं वो, हम भी गरीब हैं, हम तो गरीब से गरीब हैं.
While the BJP campaign is backing on the son of the soil, Modi, and his popularity, the Congress till now was trying to keep the spotlight away from the Prime Minister. But with Kharge scaling up the attacks on Modi, will the equations change?
Welcome back. It is being touted as the largest redevelopment project ever undertaken in India. The Adani Group has been handed the responsibility of changing the face of world's largest slum, Dharavi, in Mumbai. The winning bid is 5,029 crore rupees, with the Adanis edging out DLF and another challenger. But what do the residents really think about this entire deal? Here's a ground report by Mustafa Sheikh.
Spread across nearly 700 acres, Dharavi, in the heart of Mumbai, is a world of its own. The 2-kilometer square area has more than 10 lakh residents, with a population density of nearly 3 lakh people crammed into a square kilometer. It is also a special economic zone, self-created by the poor living there for the poor. An economic zone with revenues estimated in thousands of crores of rupees. So what does this incredible self-contained area think of the redevelopment plans created for them by the civic authorities and the state government? This family has been here for years, hoping for better infrastructure, better facilities, for a better life. They have been held hostage to promises of new homes, a better lifestyle. The latest announcement has given them new hope.
वो बोलेगा कि हमको तुम 150 स्क्वायर फुट देगा, वो मेरे को नहीं चलेगा. भाई मैं पढ़ेला नहीं हूँ, मैं एक अक्षर भी नहीं पढ़ेला, मैं जो है मामूली है, पर जितना मेरा जगह है उतना मेरे को मांगता है, मेरा परिवार उसमें आना मांगता है.
अभी हमने अपना दिन तो निकाल लिया, हमारे बच्चों का फ्यूचर हमें देखना है, क्योंकि वो जिस तरह से आज ग्रोथ हो रहे हैं, शिक्षित हो रहे हैं, तो उनके लिए हमें लगता है कि ये जगह ठीक नहीं है. अगर रीडेवलपमेंट होगा तो थोड़ा अच्छा जरूर होगा, लेकिन ये लोग सोचे जो अभी 300 डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं उससे थोड़ा बढ़कर आगे आए तो हमें भी अच्छा लगेगा.
Dharavi is also home to a huge leather and pottery industry which employs more than 1 lakh people. There are many concerns and questions among those in business regarding redevelopment. How much area will they get? What happens to the commercial shops? Whether the developer will fulfill his promises.
यहाँ पर लेदर का, गारमेंट्स का, कुम्हार हैं और इस तरीके से बहुत सारे समाज के बड़े बड़े बिजनेसमैन यहाँ पर रहते, जो स्मॉल इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, उनको एडजस्ट करने के लिए अभी तक कोई भी रास्ता हमको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है। क्योंकि काफ़ी लोग जब हमसे पूछते हैं तो हम लोगों को एक इलाके का कॉर्पोरेटर होने के नाते हम कोई भी सुझाव लोगों को नहीं दे पा रहे हैं, किसी तरीके से लोगों को समझा नहीं पा रहे हैं कि क्या है।
In the last 15 years, the Maharashtra government has made at least 4 attempts by floating bids for the redevelopment. However, the bids did not materialize. The area is considered real estate gold, and its redevelopment will involve a massive investment upfront, amid tricky complications of land acquisition and rehabilitation.
Dharavi redevelopment project is a huge and unique one. There has been already a 20-year delay in executing this project. The government has to take the aspirations of residents and commercial shop owners while doing this redevelopment project. The residents are hoping that they'll get to stay in a better Dharavi in the coming future. With camera person Samir Shanbag in Dharavi, Mustafa Sheikh for India Today.
Saurashtra is known for its cotton and groundnut production, but with the same government in power for 24 years, what is the mood of the farmers in Saurashtra? My colleague Milan Sharma filed this report from the cotton fields of Gujarat. Here's a look.
Ramesh Bhai is a busy man these days. Even as political activity peaks around him, he is busy playing catch-up with his cotton crop. The seeds which should have been planted before Diwali were delayed for the groundnut crop. He is also missing out on wheat sowing, which should have already begun by now. Farmers in the area blame the intermittent supply of power and water for these problems. They need power to operate water pumps installed in their fields, and an irregular supply often grounds their plans.
किसी भी तरह का किसी से कोई गुस्सा कम हो ही नहीं सकता, क्योंकि इतनी आफत है किसान पर है। 6-7 महीने का ये जो पाक है, तो उसमें कई दिक्कतें आती है। दवाई है, उर्वरक है और बिजली है। 8 घंटे में 8 से 12 बार बिजली की कटौती आती है। तब 3-4 किलोमीटर का जो पाइपलाइन है, वो आप समझ सकते हैं कितनी दिक्कत होगी। ना शहर में बिजली कटती है, ना इंडस्ट्रीज में बिजली कटती है, ना कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर में बिजली कटती है। लेकिन ये हकीकत है, सरकार बड़ी बड़ी फेंकती है कि हम बिजली सरप्लस दे रहे हैं, लेकिन 8 घंटे में 10-12 बार बिजली कटती है। इतने लंबे अरसे के मेहनत के बाद कभी इसमें कोई ऐसा रोग भी आ जाता है, और कभी भाव भी बहुत कम रहता है। तो कभी अति बारिश जो ये है, अभी कमोसमी बारिश अगर हुआ, जिसको मावठा बोलते हैं, तो ये माल बिगड़ जाएगा, नहीं भाव आएगा, नहीं हाथ में आएगा। तो रिस्क को कवर करने के लिए इंश्योरेंस कंपनी थी, वो सब खारिज हो गई है पिछले 2 साल से। 2016 से प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना थी, लेकिन उसकी कुछ जो अड़चने थी, उसकी जो कुछ दिक्कतें थी, तो 2 साल से वो सब खारिज हो गई है।
Groundnut and cotton prices are meanwhile higher by an average of 500 and 3,000 rupees respectively over last year, mainly due to robust domestic and overseas demand. Gujarat is also the largest cotton producer of India. Cotton and groundnut are the main cash crops of Gujarat. However, input costs have risen as well. A bag of fertilizer, DAP, which cost 600 rupees 5 years ago, today sells for nearly 1,350 rupees. Labour charge for picking cotton have also shot up.
जो यूरिया यूज होता है, क्या वो आपको सही दामों पर मिल रहा है?
नहीं, सही दाम नहीं, ज्यादा दाम है। हर साल बढ़ा देते, वो बोलते खत का भाव अभी 300 रुपये बढ़ गए इस साल। वो एनपी में 450 रुपये बढ़ गया। अभी डीएपी का 350 रुपये बढ़ गया। 1000 था, अभी 1350 हो गया। वो 900 रुपये में 20 खाता था, वो 900 रुपया था, अभी उसका 1300 रुपया हो गया। 1 साल में 300 रुपया बढ़ गया।
आपको फर्टिलाइजर में सब्सिडी नहीं मिल रही? सरकार
सब्सिडी नहीं मिलती किसी को, ये पूरा भाव दाम देना पड़ता है, कोई सब्सिडी नहीं है।
The BJP manifesto for Gujarat promises 10,000 crore rupees for farm infrastructure and 25,000 crores to augment irrigation facilities over the next 5 years. The Congress, meanwhile, is promising 10 hours of daytime power to farmers, for which they will be charged on per-day basis instead of per-unit basis. AAP is promising 300 units of free electricity if voted to power.
They are angry. The anger is simmering still in the Saurashtrian farmer community that is largely from the Patidar community. But we'll have to wait and see whether this anger translates for beating the BJP or giving them a winning chance this election season. With Pradeep Gupta from Tankara district near Morbi, this is Milan Sharma for India Today.
One of the most prominent faces of India's automobile industry, Vikram Kirloskar, passed away last evening. The 64-year-old was rushed to Manipal Hospital on the airport road in Bengaluru on Tuesday morning after he collapsed due to a heart attack. Here's a look.
The last public appearance of one of the stalwarts of the Indian auto industry. The man who brought the largest auto company in the world to India, partnered it and helped build it into one of the most tenacious brands in the country. On 25th of November, Vikram Kirloskar helped unveil one of the most anticipated vehicles, the Innova Hi-Cross, a technological iteration of the massively successful Innova Krista. In a post-launch interaction with Business Today TV, the auto industry veteran shared his wish list for next year's budget.
I want stability in policy. Last so many years I've always said this. I want stability in policy. If you want to make changes, announce them for a 5-year term. Don't announce them for one shot. That's all I ask for is stability.
Any particular policy that you think should be most, be it finance ministry or road transport, highways, heavy industries, any particular one or two things that you would like to highlight?
I always say try to reduce the budget deficit. So, if it's going to cost me more in taxes because of budget deficit reduction, I'm okay. I think as a country, we have to grow, we have to control how much we spend. So yes, autos are high tax, but I don't think we have a choice right now. But going forward, next 10 years, they should look at how to reduce the taxation.
64-year-old Kirloskar had the vision to partner with Toyota and bring the Japanese company to India in 1997. His company owned 11% in Toyota Kirloskar Motors, while the Japanese major owned 89%. The first vehicle out of Bedadi plant in 2000, the Toyota Qualis, was an instant hit. Its replacements, the Innova and Toyota's SUV offering, the Fortuner, also made their place in India's auto industry. Vikram Kirloskar oversaw Toyota's partnership in India with Maruti Suzuki for the past 6 years as well. The news of his demise came via Toyota India's social media handles late last night. The outpouring of grief and condolences was immediate for the hugely respected businessman, from the Road Transport Minister to the Commerce Minister and the Minister of State for Electronics and IT. Those in the power corridors of Delhi paid their respects. Industry leaders like Uday Kotak and Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw also tweeted their condolences for the Kirloskar family scion, who graduated in mechanical engineering from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and held several important positions in industry bodies like CII, CIAM and ARAI over the years. Consigned to the ashes this afternoon, Vikram Kirloskar was the fourth-generation member of the Kirloskar Group that started in 1888. He was also the chairman and MD of Kirloskar Systems. Kirloskar is survived by his wife Gitanjali Kirloskar. The two were married nearly 40 years ago. He also has a daughter, Mansi, who married Noel Tata's son Neville in July 2019. Mansi currently sits on the board of Toyota Kirloskar Motors, all set to drive her father's legacy forward. Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
That's it from me, Chaiti Narula, on the Business Today show. Keep watching India Today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for your time.
World Cup soccer fever is here, and then can Kolkata be far away from it? Now a quaint little store in Kolkata is bringing out kites that reflect the mood and the favorites of players and fans alike. Brazil and Argentina are dominating the kites that are now making their way through Kolkata's skies in World Cup season. Take a look.
Football fever is peaking. In Kolkata, it has reached the skies. This shop in the city is making kites on the theme of FIFA World Cup.
4 বছর অন্তর ফুটবল ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপ বা ক্রিকেট ওয়ার্ল্ড কাপ যখনই হয় আমরা